I am very lucky in that I get to spend time with a lot of DJ equipment, a lot more than most people on this planet do. But once in a while, there is a product which kind of slips through the net. It just passes me by for whatever reason. The Reloop Elite is one of those products. So why am I looking at this mixer in 2025? I mean, it released, in 2019. It's pretty old at this point, but it is still a current product in Reloop's lineup. And the truth is, the battle mixer market has been a bit stagnant of late. Over the past few years, we've had the two from Rain. We had like the 70 and the 72 and the variations thereof. They seem to be discontinued. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Rain, but as far as I can tell, you basically can't buy those anymore. No one seems to have them in stock. I don't know what their plans are around battle mixers. Pioneer DJ, you've got the DJM S11, which I love, but is pretty old as well. And the DJM S7, which is probably the closest competitor to the Elite. And that is also now a few years old. We haven't seen a new battle mixer for at least like 3 years, I think, at this point, perhaps longer. So there's not a whole lot going on in the market there. And the thing is, I didn't review the Elite when it first came out for a few reasons, mostly logistical. But also, my whole thing on this series is, look, if I don't have a lot of nice things to say about a product, I don't review it. That's why generally, I only review stuff and give positive reviews here, because I just don't think it's worth my time to talk about products which aren't good. And I didn't think this didn't have, some good stuff about it, but there were two kind of major issues for me with this around when it launched. Firstly, it doesn't have hardware effects in it at all. Okay, now I know that in the whole history of DJing, there have been countless DJs who are more than capable of throwing down a set with no effects whatsoever. I know that's a thing. It used to be me back in the day, right? It was, and there still is today. Lots of DJs who don't need effects when they play. But I, especially when I'm playing 45s, I do like to use effects. And I just like using effects as well. And I find it adds a flavor to my sets, and it lets me do smooth, interesting transitions in ways that I can't when I don't have effects. So for me, this had the software effects there, but it didn't have any hardware effects. I tell a lie, it does have some hardware effects. It has what they call the tweak effects here in the middle, which is their equivalent of Pioneer DJ's like color effects. So you've got a filter, bit crush, and flanger and white noise. Not the most useful things to me. There is a custom mode as well for mapping to software, but generally I would be leaving that on filter. That's not really enough for me. Like when I'm playing vinyl sets especially, I want an echo, I want a reverb. Really important that I have those, and this just doesn't have those kind of hardware effects. So this could never be my main mixer. It couldn't serve that function, right? And that's perhaps a me thing, as I say. Not necessarily going to apply to everybody, but for me, it could never be my main mixer for that reason. But then also, I didn't really fancy it very much as a Serato user because it does rely on software effects. And the fact is, until last year, around a year ago, the effects built into Serato DJ Pro, their software effects were rubbish. They were just rubbish. They were not good. They didn't sound good. If you wanted to use them in a kind of an advanced way and have the 3 effects available to you on each deck at once, then you didn't have any parameter controls for them. You had to use them in single effect mode, and it wasn't working at all until literally a year ago. It's like Serato software effects, I would cross the street to avoid Serato software effects. But now they're good. Like, they're really good. Like, here we have, this is an echo that I've made, my custom echo in Serato DJ Pro. It's like high passed, it's got a little bit of drive to it, it's high passed where I want it to be, sounds clean, sounds great. So when I am using now Serato DJ Pro, with DVS or whatever set up, I'm more than happy to use Serato software effects, which changes my whole perspective on this mixer. And that's the whole thing, right? I have now had this in hand. I got Reloop to send it to me because we were talking about some other products. And I was like, you know what, let me reappraise that Elite. And they sent it through for a while, and I've just been really enjoying this mixer. It's a lot of fun. There is a lot to like about this thing. Putting aside the fact that it could never be my only mixer because of the hard, but let's put that aside. Talk about the rest of it, okay? Firstly, built really, really well. Reloop mixers always are built really nicely, like just feel like tanks. Proper, solid, all metal construction. Then we come to the faders, which on a battle mixer like this, what we term a battle mixer, they're really important. And they are sometimes not quite up to standard with some other battle mixers, especially when it comes to the up faders. You know, if you do a lot of cutting on the ups, which I don't, but lots of DJs do, then having really high quality up faders as well as the crossfader is a really important thing. And this has mini inner fader pros in all 3 slots. And regular viewers will know I love me an inner fader of any variety. They're pretty much my favorite faders on the market. These are great. They feel fantastic. I've never broken any variety of inner fader in the past, like more than a decade of using them now. They're really, really adjustable. You can go in and actually adjust them inside, but you can also adjust the cutting distance within the setting utility here on the mixer itself, which is also great. But yeah, this is definitely a step up from, I would say, like its closest competitor, the DJMS7, does not have great up faders. They are now, I think there was an early batch that had some actual issues with them, but even today, they're just not great up faders. They're okay, but they're not great. These, wonderful. Mini inner faders all over. So love that. Also, you've got the knobs for the curve adjustments for each on the front. You've got hamster switches for each on the front as well. Really accessible, really quick to get to. Yeah, happy with that all around. Then we come to the actual software control, and it kind of follows the pretty standard Serato paradigm for the pad modes, etc. We've got hot cue, pitch play, save loops and loop rolls on the second lot, slicer loop, sampler, and save flips. You can also replace one of these pad modes and with stems, obviously, because stems didn't exist when this launched. So now you can just replace a pad mode. I think I was replacing, I can't remember which one it was, but yeah, there we go, slicer. I've replaced slicer with stems. So that works really nicely with your Serato stems setup. We move on up, we've got those tweak effects. You can assign anything to Serato on the custom tweak effects mode, so you just MIDI map something in Serato there. Then we've got looping. The looping on here is great. The thing is, like, I'm a big fan. I think my favorite way of working with loops is a loop encoder, and that's what this has got. So we've got the encoder, we dial in the length with this knob. If you go to the lower set of values, then it starts flashing. So you've got this nice visual indication on the mixer. That's the thing, right? There's no screen on here like an S11 or something, or a 72, but you can see a lot of what's going on. There's no main display, but there's plenty to see. Then you've also got an in-out button as well, so you can do manual loops. Just really like that. And you can also hold shift and use that as a key adjustment. If you have pitch and time in Serato DJ Pro, you can do your key adjustment there with that loop encoder. So yeah, all happy with that. Then we've got the effects section, which is very different from something like, you know, the 72 or the S11. Instead of the paddles, you have the 3 buttons to enable the different effects. Then you have this level depth knob and an on-off button and a hold button. You can adjust the beat value with this knob here. And actually, for certain types of effects, this fader way of doing things is actually kind of preferable. It's maybe not as instant gratification style as just flicking a lever, you know, flicking a paddle in the middle. But for some effects, it's actually really, really fun. Let me just load up something a bit different. Let's load up, say, the infinity filter. There it is. Let's turn that one on. So we play this. So you can kind of fade that in and out. I think that's a really nice way of working. And it's still very quick to turn things on and off because you just got that one on-off button right there. So yeah, happy with that, really digging that. And as I say, Serato's effects are good now. So finally makes me want to use this thing. Then we move on, we've got the regular kind of mixer control. So queuing is great. We've got a split queue, 2 sizes of headphone jack on the front, split queue switch, physical split queue switch on the front, which is great for in-ear monitor users like myself. You've got a fader to go between the two channels and a Q master blend knob, as well as the Q level. Plenty of headroom on the headphone output. Then we have the browse controls. This is one area where it's a little bit more fiddly than some of the competition. Only though if you're using two laptops. This does have two USB ports. You can switch between A and B, but there's only one set of browse controls. You know, like for example on the 72, you've got the browse control on the left and the browse control on the right. Here it's just one set. So if you want to switch that browse control over, you have to hold shift and then focus PC1 or focus PC2, which obviously I only have one connected right now. So it's slightly more fiddly in that regard if you're doing a back-to-back or something, but certainly not anything you can't get used to. Moving on up, we have a booth output. That's on balanced jacks, which is my preference generally to see that. And that is switchable between stereo and mono with a physical hardware switch. I like that. We've got the master output is on balanced XLRs and unbalanced RCAs. There is also a record output on RCAs and an aux input on RCAs, which has its own level control on the front. You can apply the effects to the sampler on each side, and that sampler can be routed through its own separate channel. Doesn't have to go through the master or one of the two decks. And that's got its own level control on the front as well. So that I'm a big fan of. I know when that's not present on a bit of hardware, lots of DJs do not like that. Then in terms of the connectivity, we've got an internal power supply with an IEC connector, always my preference. We do have the two USBs, and then we've got the one element which I really am not a fan of, and that is the mic input, which is comprehensive. It sounds pretty good. High, low EQ, it's got an echo on there, but it's only got a jack socket, balanced jack, instead of a combo XLR and jack, which I would always prefer to see. I had to hunt around to find an XLR to jack cable just to test it here in the lab. Then you also have a pair of USB-A sockets on the rear. Now those are really designed to be plugged in to with the RP8000 turntables from Reloop, but I've got this Rain 12 Mark II connected in via that USB as well. And that comes in very handy to have that kind of connection, because the other thing I want to talk about with this mixer, yeah, it was originally designed for Serato, works great with Serato, also works really nicely with Algorithms DJ, and I'm kind of flitting between those two bits of software right now. And to be able to use this with a pair of Rain 12s hooked into the USBs on the rear, then one USB out of the Elite into my iPhone and use that setup. I mean, I could use DVS if I wanted, but it's, you know, it's fiddly, right? That's fantastic. That is absolutely awesome. You know, to be able to run my iPhone here is just the main source of all the music, and the displays still work. You know, these displays are kind of minimal. They're kind of basic looking, but they are useful, right? You've got the BPM of the track, you've got the beat value for your effects, and you can see what the effects are on there. That's kind of enough information as far as I'm concerned. I don't really use the waveforms and all that very much on my S11. So yeah, overall, this thing is really working fantastically well with Algorithms DJ. So that for me is an absolute bonus. We do need to talk about sound quality before we wrap up. Now, this thing, I've taken it out a couple of times. It sounds good. It sounds clean. It's got that digital kind of clean sound. It doesn't have any kind of analog warmth to it. You know, there are some mixers in this category that have a bit of oomph in that low end, like that Rain kind of warmth in the low end. It doesn't have that. It sounds very clean and precise. More, I would say, in general, including with the phono preamps, it's kind of on a level with the DJM S7, which is fitting because price-wise, as I've said, that's kind of its closest competitor. This comes in, prices are all over the shop, all over the world right now, but this is coming in around about 1,300 euros, which makes it a bit cheaper than the S7, substantially cheaper than the S11. And as I say, the Rain mixers, it just seems like you can't really buy those right now. So yeah, if you're looking for a step up from something like a Newmark Scratch, like that's a cool little mixer, you know, sub €1,000 kind of mixer. But if you're looking for that next step up, but you don't want to go all the way up to like an S11 and spend that kind of dough, then actually I really can't recommend this thing enough. With that one caveat that, yeah, it could never be my personal mixer of choice, because when I'm playing vinyl, and this thing does do very well with vinyl, but it doesn't have effects when you do, unless you plug in a laptop, and you can run your effects in Serato as like through effects, and you can run through into that, but I'm not doing that. That's not a thing I'm going to do. But yeah, if you can live without the ability to use hardware effects on other sources in general, then yeah, I do really recommend this Reloop Elite. I'm glad I've come back to this one, because I had overlooked it, it had passed me by. And if I hadn't sat down with it recently and played with it as I have, I think I would have missed out, because actually, yeah, this is a pretty cool battle mixer. In the comments, you know, this has been around for a while, so there must be plenty of Elite users out there. Let us know your thoughts on the Elite. How have you got on with it? What have been your favorite features? What have you enjoyed using and maybe not so much? And what would you like to see from a future battle mixer from these big manufacturers? We are due to get some pretty soon, right? It's got to be time for some new battle mixers to come along. So what do we want to see in those? Sound off in the comments below. Thank you for watching this episode of Beatsource Tech. I do hope you've enjoyed it or found it useful. If you have, be sure to give us a thumbs up, subscribe, and make sure you've turned on notifications so you don't miss any future videos. And hey, if you haven't already, you can try Beatsource for free and join DJcity for just $10. The links are down in the description. I'll see you next time.